hard right now. There is a lot of mess all around us right now. There's a lot of mess and there's a lot of heaviness and there's a lot going on. And in the last couple of weeks, I have spent a lot of hours sitting with a lot of different people who are working through some of the hardest things they've ever gone through. I've walked with some people who are dealing with marriages that are on the brink of divorce, and they're trying to figure out what do we do and how do we move forward. I've talked with some people who are working through addictions and trying to figure out how do we break free from this cycle and how do we get God's help when we so desperately need it in those moments. I've worked with different families right now that are struggling to keep their families afloat. There's tension in relationships, there's tension in the home, and they're not quite sure what to do with that. There's a hard moment happening right over there too. And it's okay. Sometimes, honestly, in our lives, sometimes the hard moments we're working through are very public. And there are other times that hard moments are very private. And you will never know the weight and the burdens that the person sitting next to you on a row is carrying and what they're working through. And it is really hard. It is really hard. And it's really messy. And if you want to just for a second, take another step further back and realize that the world around us is pretty stinking messy right now. It's absolutely messy. And some of you are here because of the weight of those moments. Some of you have come in reflection to those moments of what's going on in the world around us, where there's school shootings, and that's heartbreaking. There was a shooting of Charlie Kirk. There was a war going on, by the way, at the same time. There's religious persecution going on at the same time. There are all of these different things piling on top of each other, and sometimes in the weight of those moments, we are not really sure what do we do, or how to respond, or how to react to the world around us. Sometimes we jump in and respond immediately. Sometimes we're at a loss for words. Sometimes we just feel the weight. Sometimes it takes a while for that weight to set in. There are all sorts of different reactions that come in the moment. And sometimes I get it right, and sometimes I don't get it right as your pastor. By the way, there are no perfect people allowed, and I am leading by example, always, right? Like, we all need that. And there are moments that I've helped lead through great moments and moments where I've done poor job at that, and I apologize for those moments always because I'm working through them at the same time as all of you are. And it's hard. But I'm going to encourage you to do the exact same thing that I will encourage myself all the time. In those moments, the greatest thing you could ever do when you're trying to work through the mess is to just straight up say, God, what do I do with this? God, what do we do in this moment? And when you pray those prayers, it's a very honest prayer. Sometimes God gives you an answer that is just clear as mud. And you're like, well, okay, what do I do with that now? And there are other times where you put that before God and you say, God, what do we do right now? And the answer is crystal clear. And where we're at right now in our lives and in our faith and in our world, I think the answer is crystal clear. I really do think it is. Because Jesus has been asked that question before. Of what do we do? How do we respond around us? What is the most important thing that we could possibly do in this moment? In fact, that's a direct question that Jesus was asked. Is Jesus, what is most important? And he responded so clear. So clear. Maybe you've heard this before from Matthew 22, when Jesus was asked, what is the most important thing? And he answers, well, the most important command is this: love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And for bonus, he gives them a second. They only asked for one. He gave them two. He says, and the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and all the prophets hang on these two commands. We are called, regardless of the situations going on around us, first and foremost, to love God with everything that we've got, to pursue him always. And secondly, we are called to love the people around us. It is crystal clear. And I'm telling you, if you are here and you are a follower of Jesus, if you're online watching and you are a follower of Jesus, this is not a suggestion, this is a command. This is our job. To love God with everything that we've got and to love the people around us. If you're here and you're not a follower of Jesus, hold us to this. But I do think that if you actually live this out in your life, whether you follow Jesus or you're just here asking questions, it will change your life. It absolutely will. And my hope and my prayer is that you see Jesus through it and that Jesus in your heart changes your life, because it does change lives. Every time. We are called to love God with everything that we've got. We are called to love people with everything that we've got. But my question is, with that in mind, what if we actually return to that as our primary focus as people? What if we actually chose in moments like this that are messy and hard to respond in such a way that puts God first and loves other people, period? What if we did that? I think our world would look a whole lot different. It would. And we as a church put it this way. This is our way of saying that. Our city can be changed by our love. It absolutely can. When we love the people around us, when we serve the people around us, when we show God by the way that we care for other people, as a church, we are outward focused as a church. That means that our job, we understand as followers of Jesus, is to love the community around us, is to serve the community around us, to represent Jesus and to care for the least, the last, the lost, the hurting, the broken, the people who are walking through the messes of life. We are called to be there with them, serving them and loving them in such a way that points them to Jesus. And then when we gather together, we create environments that welcome people who are messy, hurting, broken, lost, confused, asking questions, feeling the weight of the world, to the table, to come gather in a safe place where it's okay to belong before you believe, and to bring your mess to the table and know that we're going to love you regardless and we're going to walk with you through it. It's a beautiful opportunity we have to love people right there, to serve people right there, and to show Jesus. But I'm telling you, messy church is messy, and messy people are messy, and walking with messy people is messy work. It's messy work every time. It is hard to do. It is hard to live that out. But learning how to see the needs of others beyond yourself, learning how to care for people above yourself, learning how to point people to Jesus by the way that you serve and love them, it will change their life and it will change your heart every time. It absolutely will every time. And Jesus talks about this so often. If you want an example from Jesus' teachings and his words, which is what I hope that we're seeking here together, I want to give that to you. We're in Luke chapter 10 today. If you brought your Bibles, you can flip there. Luke is in the New Testament. It's the third book in the New Testament after Jesus has shown up on the scene. If you've got a Bible app or you're on your phones, you can totally look this up right now and just have it right in front of you, Luke chapter 10. And we're going to read a story of how Jesus responds to those tough questions and how Jesus leads us in a way forward in moments like where we're at right now, where we need an example. It's a familiar story for many. It's a story of the Good Samaritan. And you may have heard this before, maybe not. Regardless, what I'm going to ask you to do is listen with fresh ears and let God speak to you through this, because his word is so powerful in this. So this is Luke chapter 10, verse 25. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? It's a great question. It's a hard question. And Jesus, in this moment, looks at him and he says, what is written in the law? He replied. How do you read it? And I love Jesus' response here, and it's fascinating. If you look at Jesus and the way he responded to people's questions, we see in the Gospels, Jesus is questioned 183 times. And of those 183 times, guess how many he gave a straight answer to? Three of them. And in small groups this week, you're going to talk about this and you're going to ask that question of, well, why didn't he just give straight answers? And I want you to dig into that and think about that. But in this context, like there's so many times we approach Jesus, we approach God with questions. We're like, okay, God, just give me a yes or no. Let's make this clear. And it's not so clear. Well, that's pretty common because he wants you to work through things. He wants you to figure this out. And so he turns the question around into a question. And the man answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Sound familiar? You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this, and you will live. Now, it could be that he had heard Jesus teaching this message before, and he heard that those were the two most important commands, and he's reciting them back and winning Jesus' approval. It could also be that he knew the law so well that he understood the exact same thing that Jesus had taught, that those two things, everything else falls off of. If you do those two things, you will uphold every law that's ever been written. But in this moment, Jesus gives him a question, he reflects it back, and now he does what we like to do as people, which is give a follow-up question. Just in case I didn't hear you, Jesus. He wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? And I love this as a follow-up question because it's an honest one. Because you can see his heart in this moment going, okay, well, I need to love my neighbor. Well, go ahead. Tell me, who is my neighbor? Jesus, who is the person I'm called to love? And Jesus answers very clearly with a meme. And this is what he says. Love your neighbor as yourself. Who's my neighbor? It's whoever you were hoping I wouldn't say. Well, if only Jesus gave such a clear answer in this moment, although it would have been awesome if that's how he replied. That would make my heart happy. But it's not what he says. This is what he says. In reply, Jesus said, he doesn't give him a straight answer, he gives him a story. A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now let me paint the scene as this is happening. So if they were going from Jericho to Jerusalem, it's a downhill slope to get there. So literally they're going down. And it's a 17-mile trek that kind of weaves and turns, and it goes through rocky terrain, and it's rough and it's hard to navigate through, but they're working their way through it. It was a common traveling path, but it was also well known that along the path there were people who would hide behind rocks, who would hide behind bushes, and robbers would come out and take advantage of people who are still working their way through this. So the whole audience, as they're hearing this, was like, okay, yeah, I can picture that. I get that. I see what's going on. Jesus says they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and he went away, leaving him half dead. What they don't know in this is Jesus is also alluding to what's coming his way soon, because that's very much how he was treated by the Romans. He was beat, he was stripped, he was left half dead until they pinned him on the cross. Where the rest? Well, we know the rest. But in this moment, Jesus is painting the picture that there is a man in deep need of trouble. Verse 31, a priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. It almost writes like a punchline. A priest and a Levite walk down a path, right? Like you're just waiting for it. Okay, give it to me, Jesus. But that context, again, help you understand what's going on. The priest probably would have walked by, because a priest is on his way to the temple. And the priest, if he were to touch anyone who is dirty or half dead or dead, would make him unclean, which means he can't go do his religious duties. He can't go be a priest in the temple. So he walks by. The Levite is a temple assistant. A Levite would have had strict restrictions, but not anywhere near that extreme. But he was also on his way to the temple. So, okay, it's understandable that on their way there, they don't want to get unclean or dirty. But then Jesus throws the biggest curveball that they were not ready for. And he says, but a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. Now, this would have shocked the audience, because the Samaritan people to the Jewish people, they were not good. If you want somebody who's not a neighbor, that's the one. A Samaritan was considered a half-breed. A Samaritan was considered unclean. A Samaritan was considered a heretic. They were someone you avoided at all costs if you were a Jewish person. And yet here he is, Jesus, painting the picture of this guy, the unlikely hero, as the hero of the story. He is the guy who steps in. He is the guy who becomes the one we want to be as an example, helping the guy on the side of the road. This is how Jesus taught, by the way. He would flip the script so many times. He painted a picture of the kingdom of God that was upside down from what anyone else had ever experienced before. He would say things like, well, it is the least, the last, who will be the first. And it's the humble who will be exalted. Or in this context, and in our day and age, what we can't hear enough is when Jesus is teaching in one of his most powerful teachings in Matthew chapter 5. He says, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Wait, what? What? We're called to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. What if we actually did that? What if we really took Jesus seriously? And when he says, if you're feeling attacked, if you're feeling persecuted, what do you need to do? Love and pray. Well, in fact, I think that takes us right back to what he said was the most important thing we could ever do, which is to love God and to love other people. So who is the neighbor? He's expanding the pool to be anyone and everyone. And I love the Samaritan's response to this because it's so contrast to what we do as people. We are really good at putting caveats and clarifiers out there. And well, okay, but I hear what you're saying, Dave, but do you know what mess they're bringing with them? Do you know their backstory? Or my favorite, Dave, do you know where they stand on fill in the blank? And let's be honest, we all know what that blank is right now, okay? That blank is pineapple on pizza, right? Like, yes, I know where they stand because pineapple on pizza is the correct answer. And it's okay. Listen, we can be a house divided, and that's all right in this context. But no, it's usually a much heavier topic or something that's deeply personal to you. Do you know where they stand on? Do you know what the Samaritan is showing us? Who cares? They're messy, and they're hurt, and they're broken, and they need love. He's showing us the example that it doesn't matter who it is. There is not a single person on this earth who God does not love. And that's the story that Jesus is painting. Yeah, they're messy. Yep, so are you, by the way. Help. It's the example that's being set by this person. He goes on. He didn't just help, by the way. He went on in verse 34. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. He didn't just help him. He went the extra mile. And then the next day he went the next mile again. He gave him everything he possibly could. The reality is, anytime you step up to the plate with love and compassion, it has a cost. It absolutely has a cost. It might cost you time, it might cost you money, it might cost you resources, it might cost you 2 denarii and a hotel room, it might cost you a donkey, okay? But the reality is we are called to step up and to step in and to help out. And yeah, it might have a cost. Jesus modeled that so beautifully because the Jesus that we see stepped into a moment of compassion and love that had the highest cost possible. He was put on a cross for us. He died for us. And when he breathed his last, he offered forgiveness and grace to all. And when he breathed life again in the tomb, he offered life to all. He gave everything. That is the example we live. We give everything we can in the scenario. It might be as simple as you need to go help shovel the driveway of your elderly neighbor, and you're showing love and compassion, but it has a cost. Or maybe you need to step up to the plate and foster a child who's been lost inside the system, who needs a family to love them and support them and care for them. That comes with a cost. But we're called to love. Maybe it's a financial thing. And when we ask for all to contribute to helping the do-good projects inside of this church, it's all of us pooling resources to do something better and bigger together than any of us could do alone. It's a cost. But isn't that what love requires? Well, that's the picture that's being played out here. Verse 36, Jesus asked the question of the man, and which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. And Jesus told him, go and do likewise. Again, Jesus asks him a question and forces him to answer his own question from verse 29. And I love that. Jesus is giving him the opportunity to work through it and to see it and to understand that, yeah, it's messy, but my goodness, it's worth everything. And he tells us, the audience, the listener, go and do likewise. Go and do. Go and do. If you want to know where we get our idea to do good as a church, this is it. When Jesus says, go and do. Go and do likewise. Go and to do good in your community. Go and do good to the people around us. Again, if you're a follower of Jesus, this is not optional. This is our command to go and to do, to love people with everything that we've got. You can't just see a need and walk on by. We're called to stop and to help and to point people to Jesus in everything that we do. That is our job. Or as a church, what we say, our city can be changed by our love. I absolutely believe that to be true. And I think if Jesus were to show up today and you were to ask him, what do we need to do? How do we react to the world around us? I think this is exactly how he would answer. Go and love and serve and take care of people, because there are hurting, lost, broken people who need the love of Jesus right here in our community. And there are people all over the world who are hurting and lost and broken and need to be loved on the side of the road. The people who we are called to serve. One of the greatest places I ever saw this played out in real life was when Matt and I got to travel to India a few months ago and meet up with Global Prayer Team International, the church that's existing out there in India. And we saw firsthand this church who clearly and strategically positioned themselves right in the middle of a community that was destitute and needed help and love. And that's exactly what they offer. And when they open their gates, when you walk in there, actually the moment you walk out of their gates, you just look to the left, to the right, straight ahead, you see the needs all around you. It's not hidden. It's not anything where you have to guess, what do we need to do here? And they have stepped up to the plate, and they're loving people well, and they're serving people well. And actually one of their next ministry initiatives is to start a t-shirt ministry, which is super fun. At Thrive, we love some good swag, right? But here's the thing, for them, they need it. They need the clothes. They need help in that way. And so they're starting a new ministry coming up where they're going to produce their own clothing for them that's going to have some Christian messaging on it, because these people are desperate for clothes, but they're even more than that, their souls are desperate for the hope of Jesus. And so they're going to go share the hope of Jesus in a way that will connect to their people. When they open their doors and invite people in for any ministry thing that they do, there is food involved, and they're feeding them a meal, and oh my goodness, like it is like, it is good food. Like, food is one of my core values, and because of that, it's one of our core values as a church. Good food, but it's so good. But the reason they do that is because they're not sure if these people going home are going to have a meal when they go home. And so while they're here, we're going to take care of them physically, and we're going to take care of them spiritually. And we're going to love these people. And I'm really excited about this, because the longer we were there with them, the more I'm like, this is our DNA being lived out on the opposite side of the world. This is who we exist for. This is what we love to do. Played out in a different context, literally opposite side of the globe. And because of that relationship, starting next month, we're beginning a new partnership with them where they're going to be our sister church. And we're going to have a beautiful relationship with them. We're going to get to financially support them. We're going to care for them. It's so good. Now, locally, there are other do-good initiatives that we're stepping up to the plate in also. There's a new chaplaincy program that's coming to the Isabella County Jail that we're going to get to be a part of, and sending some volunteers to go love the least, last, and the lost, the hurting, and the broken in Central Michigan. And we're going to get to go serve them and care for them. And that's going to be awesome. We're going to do that with volunteers. You'll hear more about that later. We're also going to do that with a financial partnership to care for people who desperately need the love of Jesus in their lives and need to be cared for and not forgotten. And so we're going to care for them. But this is it. This is why we do it. Craig Rochelle puts it this way. People don't change by being judged. People change by being loved. And I think that's absolutely true. And if we get this right as a church, we've got ourselves figured out. In fact, we're taught over and over and over again. Proverbs says it's criminal to ignore a neighbor in need, but compassion for the poor, what a blessing. 1 John says, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. Galatians says, let's not become weary in doing good, for we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up. James says, faith by itself, if it's not accompanied by action, is dead. You put all those together, here's what we would say. A faith that doesn't do good is no good. We are called to be people of action. We are called to be people who put our love into action. And in this community, there are over 100,000 people who don't have a church home, many of whom are lost, hurting, broken, the least, last, lost, the people who need the hope of Jesus. We have a job to do. We have a story to tell. And so we go and we engage and we meet them in their mess and we point them to the hope that we have found, and we invite them into a family of faith that can walk alongside them and is not going to judge them for their mess, but is going to welcome them in with love and in a way that points us all to Jesus. That's why we do this as a church. That's why we put it as part of our process, that our strategy for helping people grow is to show up, jump in, and do good. And if you want to know what it means to show up and jump in, the last 2 weeks we talked about that. But this idea of doing good, it changes lives. It changes lives. And I'm telling you, the closer you get to the heart of Jesus, the more you're going to care about people. And the more you care about people, the closer you're going to get to the heart of Jesus. And it keeps going. And the process keeps on going. And you show up and you jump in and you do good. And then you show back up and you jump in and you do good. You keep growing and you keep looking more and more like Jesus as we do that. And that's what we're called to be. That's who we are supposed to be. And I'm telling you, it works. It absolutely does. I talked to a couple of new guests in the last couple of weeks. One who came because we were at a community event, out doing good, just serving people and loving people at Texas Roadhouse. And it was not a well-attended event, but we committed to being there to serve our community and to represent a faith-based organization there. And because of that, they came. And being out there and present and active and engaged in the community led somebody in to help them experience the hope and the truth of Jesus that we have, which is amazing because what we were competing with in that moment was those Texas Roadhouse rolls, and those are a serious temptation, okay? I mean, again, food, core value of mine. But it allowed somebody to come hear the hope that we have because we're out active, engaged in the community. We do things like our shoe project. Our shoe project has brought in several families along the way as we've served and loved and cared for people. We do other events all the time. Another one came last week because they saw us at Dad Fest and thought, oh, if there's a church that does something like this, that's a church I could see myself being a part of. Just going out and serving. And again, it's probably the bacon that led them in. But it's so good when we're out and we're serving. It changes lives. Your life, their life, it changes everybody. So let's take the words of Jesus right here at the end of this story. Go and do good. Go and do good. The greatest thing you can do for the community and the world around you right now is to love people. It is the greatest thing. You point them to the hope that you have. You point them to Jesus. You point them to God's love. And we represent that everywhere that we go. If you're here this morning and you're in a place where you're just feeling the mess and the heaviness and the hurt and the heartache, maybe it's a personal story, maybe it's a global story, and you need somebody to walk with you and pray with you, I want to invite you to fill out the QR code. We're going to walk with you. We commit to that as a church, that we're not worried about any of the mess. We're worried about you, and we want to love you. We want to care for you. So let us know, and we're going to do that. If you're in a place where your heart has been broken and you need the hope of Jesus, you're there and you're desperate and you need the hope that he offers, the hope that we're talking about, don't leave today without letting us know, because we want to help you in that moment. And today's the day to cross that line of faith and say, okay, Jesus, I'm going to give this a shot. And I promise you, when you take a step toward Jesus, he takes 100 more steps toward you. And he will fill your heart, he will fill your mind, and he will renew you and give you a strength that you've never known before. But you can't do that alone either. So let us know, and we want to walk with you. But let me pray for all of us, and then let's go and do good. God, we thank you for this moment. We acknowledge that our world's a mess, and our lives are a mess. And we are so desperate for your help and your hope and your healing. But God, more than that, we're grateful for your love that allows us to have life and life eternal, that frees us from our sin and our mess, that gives us grace when we so desperately need it. God, I pray that we are people who turn around and show that exact same grace to the messy, hurting, lost, and broken all around us. That the way we live, the words we share, the actions that we take would model the love and the grace and the actions that you showed us. God, would you help us to go and do good, to go and do likewise in our community. Strengthen us, grow us. God, I pray that lives are changed as a result. In Jesus' name, amen.